I want to talk to you now about the elements of design. We're going to speak specifically about four elements: alignment, proximity, repetition, and contrast. These four elements are discussed extensively in the Non-Designer's Design book written by Robin Williams, a text that I highly recommend. Now, let's begin by talking about proximity. Proximity is the concept of things being grouped together. That when we put things together, it means that they have a relationship. Now, how do you get it? Well, you squint and count the number of elements on a page. Limit yourself to between 3 and 5 elements per page. So, whether you're designing a screen or whether you're designing a page or whether you're designing anything in particular, you want to employ the element of design of proximity and have no more than 3 to 5 groups of objects on the page. What do you want to avoid? Well, avoid putting objects in corners or in the middle of the page. Avoid equal amounts of white space between all elements. You might notice on this page there's less space between these two elements than there is between these two elements. Now, why is that? Well, because these are both content and this is a title. I've set the title off with a great deal of white space. These content elements are closer together. Their proximity shows part of their relationship. You notice that this heading is closer to this element than this heading is. We know this heading goes with this particular piece of content because of their proximity. So we want to put elements that belong together in groups by proximity. If they don't belong together, we want to put large amounts of space between them. We want to force relationships between headings and content, as I've done here. And don't put unrelated content elements together, as I've done here. Now, the next topic we're going to look at is alignment. The human eye loves alignment. And you notice I have a line here that shows how we've aligned these elements on the T's. Well, how do we get alignment? Well, first of all, always align elements on a page, even those that are far apart. Now you might say, well, these don't line up. Well, let's take a look and see if they don't. Notice that I do have a line right here. All of my headings line up on this line. Notice also that my content elements line up. I've been very careful to create lines. Now, it is true that this element does not line up with these elements. However, you'll see that I have about a ½ inch of space here between this element and this particular line. I've maintained that ½ inch up here as well. So in a sense, I've formed a ½ inch border around the outside of this screen. And you'll also notice that I maintain that ½ inch all the way around. Don't center some text and left align other text. As a matter of fact, avoid centering anyway. When you center an element, you're saying that this element is really important. The more you center, the less important those elements become. Now we've looked at proximity and alignment. Let's take a look at repetition. Repetition seems like an easy concept to grasp. Just repeat things. How do I get it? Well, first of all, choose design characteristics, your typeface, color, size, cartoon style, picture style, and then repeat them. Find existing repetitions and strengthen them by contrast or uniqueness. Accent the repetition. Think black hat, black shirt, black pants, black shoes, white corsage. What are we saying here? We're saying that once you set on a design element, once you've come up with a design theme, stay with your theme. However, don't let your theme become overwhelming. For instance, I've seen students turn in presentations that have a pink background and then dark pink foreground. It's too much pink. We need an accent. That accent could be, for instance, a light background of white with a dark foreground of dark pink. That would be a stronger relationship. Now, we're going to talk about that more when we get to contrast, but for right now, I want you to think of a theme when you are designing media, and you're going to be designing several projects in this course. I want you to think about designing media with a theme. What to avoid? Don't keep repeating it if it's becoming annoying. This is especially true of transition effects. You want to minimize repeating your transition effects. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you avoid transition effects and simply use fade in and fade out whenever you have to do a transition. Don't repeat mistakes. In other words, if you've made a mistake once, that doesn't mean you just keep repeating it. Correct the mistake. Don't repeat phrases. It becomes annoying. You want to vary your language. And avoid ransom noting. You'll notice that every letter in this particular word comes from a different font. What's that about? Well, in the old days, when you wanted to write a ransom note, you cut out magazine letters from a bunch of different magazines so that no one could trace your ransom note. Today, graphic designers call this ransom noting when you use multiple fonts in one project. We've talked about proximity, alignment, and repetition. Now let's talk about contrast. You can get contrast by being bold. Use color, size, and space to differentiate between content. Break the rules when it works. This goes for all 4 elements, by the way. So let's take a look here at contrast. This element, this text, is significantly larger than the rest of the text on the page. Notice that this text is crimson and this text is black. I'm creating contrast to set my titles apart and my headings apart. I've talked about breaking the rules when it works. One of the elements we talked about was repeating typeface. But look up here. Here I have the IUP logo and the IUP name in a different font than the rest of my presentation. It's okay because I'm going to repeat this on every page. I'm going to repeat this on every page. I'm going to use this font in the white area below. As long as I'm consistent, I can break the rule. What to avoid? Avoid wimpy contrast. Yellow and white don't go together. Avoid 2 different fonts that look alike. For instance, Calibri and Arial. And then finally, I want you to make sure that you don't combine the same color in the background as the foreground. For instance, don't put dark blue over light blue. Go for a stronger contrast. For instance, a white background and a dark blue foreground. Well, we've talked about the elements of design: alignment, proximity, repetition, and contrast. As we're working throughout this course and creating technology projects, I hope that you'll apply these 4 elements over and over again. I'll be looking forward to helping you with that.